With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halvorson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, it's an early start for the California fresh fig season and working to reduce obstacles for red meat exports to Canada. But our top story today, the Biden-Harris administration has issued payments to eligible applicants under the Inflation Reduction Act's Discrimination Financial Assistance Program, which aims to provide financial assistance to farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners who experienced discrimination before January of 2021. Over the course of the application processes, USDA and program administrators embarked on an aggressive outreach program to ensure those who were eligible were aware of the program and had access to free technical assistance. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack says more than 43,000 individuals, including people in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and American Samoa, will receive financial assistance through the program.
We had close to 30 offices that were open that took people walking in with stories. We had over 58,000 calls at our call center. We had people like Dr. Goldman, Monica Range, and others go out and make presentations. We had a series of 18 cooperator groups that extended our outreach efforts with meetings everywhere from farm aid to church basements in an effort to try to extend information about this program to get to anybody who felt that they were discriminated against prior to January of 2021 at a USDA office. And the fact is we got 58,000 applications. And after an independent review by two independent reviewers, groups of reviewers, the determination was made that there were 43,244 applications that were worthy of a financial assistance, and the financial assistance then ranged depending upon a number of factors, including the level of discrimination, the time of the discrimination, the nature of the discrimination, the nature of the farming operation, the size of the operation, whether there were foreclosures, whether homes were lost, whether farms were lost, a whole series of criteria, which is distinct and different from previous efforts where payments were made in a lump sum form based on class actions or individual claims that were asserted against the department. This was an effort to try to determine the level of financial assistance needed and then to distribute that financial assistance as warranted. So it's much different than anything we faced before because of the way it was structured by Congress.
Vilsack says there were several examples of discrimination that qualified producers for compensation.
A woman farmer may have been denied credit by virtue of the fact that a loan officer decided that she wouldn't be in a position to be able to farm or to be able to deliver on the loan payments without really having a factual basis for making that determination. It could be a circumstance, a situation where you got a loan. It could have been a black farmer who got a loan, but the loan was late in the planting season. And the result of that is it impacted and affected the yields of that farming operation. It could be a circumstance where the interest rate that was charged was different than interest rates that were charged to other borrowers under similar circumstances. It could be a circumstance and situation where there was no follow-up, there was no effort to try to assist the individual because of a discriminatory reason. So I think what you would find over 58,000 applications, and specifically over the 43,244 that received financial assistance, is a wide range of factual scenarios and circumstances, which is why Congress crafted it the way it did, which was to basically say we're interested in making sure that we provide financial assistance to anybody who may have experienced discrimination while trying to do business with USDA, and that is part of what we're trying to do, is to turn the page on this and create a new narrative and a new story about USDA.
As detailed in the letters that applicants will receive, decisions are final. All eligibility decisions and payment determinations were made in a single round, which means funding is not available for appealed applications, nor does USDA have the ability to fund or staff an appeals process. You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. Here is today's National Spotlight, starting with Cindy Zimmerman.
First, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Bohl-Borman. I live in north central Iowa. where my husband and I farm, and I just recently finished my PhD in land and atmospheric science at the University of Minnesota.
Well, you are one of the winners here in Excellence in Ag Tech at Tech Hub Live for research and education. So tell me a little bit about why you received this honor.
My first background, I was an agronomist for over 14 years working in the nutrient management space. I found an opportunity to work on a manure test database project. I had a lot of experience with manure management planning and manure testing, and I thought this would be an interesting way to leverage that experience, and was able to go to the University of Minnesota and work with Dr. Melissa Wilson and Dr. Aaron Cordes in the Department of Soil, Water, and Climate. They had received a grant to create a nationwide manure test database. So as part of my graduate studies, went from helping recruit laboratories across the U.S. to participate in this project, to work with the Minnesota Supercomputing Institute and developers and a team to lay out the framework and the schema of how we're going to standardize all this data from different laboratories coming in different formats, different units, and make a template that all this data could be standardized into. Also creating an eventual website that became public. Then once we had data coming in and made these relationships with the laboratories, getting that data cleaned and standardized so we could import it into the database, and then eventually, recently, the beginning of 2024. Had a data download feature, so this is all publicly available on the ManureDB website today. So this is how I, got involved with this, and then, speaking about the project and writing about it for my dissertation, but also for other, agricultural media formats. So this is my evolution into this space.
Well, how did you feel when you found out you won?
Oh, I was very, very excited and honored. This is a, prestigious award, and that other people thought I was worthy. I was very honored to receive it.
Do you have any other plans for the future of getting into more in the ag tech space?
I sure would. I actually just completed I had my dissertation defense in May, completed all my work at the University of Minnesota the end of June. So I'm kind of taking off the summer to try to catch up with life because it's been a crazy 2024 spring here, trying to race to the end and get caught up with farm and family things here and starting to explore opportunities, which I'm really looking in the ag technology space. So, yes.
Very good. Well, congratulations. Here at Tech Hub Live in Des Moines, I'm Cindy Zimmer.
More than 500 exhibitors and vendors will gather next week in Redwood County, Minnesota for Farm Fest. Chad Smith has more on the busy 3-day schedule.
Farm Fest 2024 in Minnesota has a busy schedule packed full of information, learning, and networking opportunities. Nikki Jones, Director of Events Marketing for Idea Ag, says the festival has something for just about everyone.
We have several Farm Fest forums going on, anything from the Farm Bill to tips for surviving in a down economy, that Congressional Candidate Forum on Tuesday morning, and then another one on Tuesday afternoon. We've also got on Wednesday the Minnesota candidates for U.S. Senate. This is our year of farm family fun. We've got demonstrations and kids events and all sorts of things going on in addition to our hundreds of exhibitors.
Jones says the forums will be available even for people outside of the Minnesota area.
We are going to be live streaming those panels. So for anyone that's interested in the Senate and congressional races in Minnesota, you can catch that on farmfest.com. We're going to be streaming them live on our Farm Fest forums pages, as well as on the homepage of our website as they go live. So that is something that people can certainly tune into, and then we will post the archive on farmfest.com as well.
She says events like Farm Fest are important for more than just the panel discussions.
These farm shows are really one of the top ways that ag producers find that they can research a purchase, talk with all of their contacts, and really get ideas. And it's a really good place to network and grow that family farm. Even if you come and you are someone that is not looking to buy something, you get all sorts of new ideas. You see things you maybe haven't seen before. You learn things. And I think that is incredible.
For more information on the Farm Fest schedule or live streamed events, go to farmfest.com. Chad Smith, Washington.
That's today's National Spotlight. Now here's David Geiger with the Livestock Report.
U.S. hog producers pump billions of dollars into the American economy, according to a new economic contribution report released by the National Pork Producers Council. Its economist Holly Cook says they looked at 2023 levels of hog production, modeling the ripple effect into this year.
This is a report that captures the pork industry's total economic importance in terms of the jobs that are supported, the personal incomes that we're helping generate, and just overall the value that we're adding to the U.S. economy.
With hog producers supporting more than 573,000 total jobs, generating $37 billion in personal income, and adding $62 billion to U.S. GDP. Cook says in conversations with policymakers and other industry stakeholders, this information demonstrates the importance of the hog industry.
Which essentially quantifies what would be lost if pork production wasn't there, or if we are to continue to see a trend towards fewer hog farms, or last year was a really difficult year for the pork industry, really just helps underscore the importance of our issues and why others should care about those.
Pointing to last year, Cook notes she comes from the #1 pork-producing state in the nation, Iowa. And because of her experience on the family farm, she wanted to know the impact those difficulties have looking forward.
2023 was extremely difficult for pork producers. We had very high input costs and lower hog revenues last year, which led to losses across our industry. And so when we were gearing up to do this report using 2023 as our production year, I was curious to see what those results were going to look like.
Especially with fewer dollars available in the industry to make purchases or generate activity.
And so we did see those impacts come down from the last time we did this report, which used 2021 production data, which was a very high revenue year. But even with all of those challenges, we do still see the industry being a very significant contributor economically at the U.S. state and local level.
National Pork Producers Council economist Holly Cook talking about their latest economic contribution report, which can be found online at the MPPC website. I'm David Geiger reporting.
This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with a preview of what you'll hear today on AgNet West, here's Brian German.
The California fresh fig season is in full swing after getting off to an early start. Hot summer temperatures prompted an early start to the 2024 season, with harvest activities extending now into the fall. The Breba crop delivered the first mission figs of the season in May and June. The main fig crop, including varieties like Brown Turkey, Mission, and Sierra, is now currently underway. Additional varieties will continue to become available through November. California fig orchards are thriving after years of drought and fires, according to Carla Stockley of the California Fresh Fig Growers Association. She noted that orchards are the healthiest they've been in years, and 2024 is expected to be one of the best California fresh fig seasons they've ever seen. California's fig growers have continued planting additional acres to meet increasing consumer demand. This year's harvest is expected to match last year's nearly 10 million pounds of production. PepsiCo Foods North America has launched the Planting Pathways initiative to expand agricultural opportunities. The initiative includes partnerships with nonprofit leaders such as Practical Farmers of Iowa and Farm Foundation. PFI will support underrepresented and beginning farmers through business planning, coaching, capital, networks, and training. The Farm Foundation will develop a 2-year program called Field to Future, which is designed to support college students pursuing careers in agriculture. This program offers a range of career development opportunities, including conference attendance, mentorships, and scholarships provided by the PepsiCo Foundation. With only 9% of U.S. farmers under 35 years old, the initiative aims to drive sustainable and systemic change in the industry, and it also aligns with the overall PepsiCo positive agenda to build a resilient and inclusive food system. While Canada is a critical market for U.S. beef and pork products, regulatory issues continue to hinder exports. The introduction of the Public Health Information System Export Module was intended to expedite the process by reducing paperwork. However, the U.S. Meat Export Federation claims this system has failed to achieve its goal as documentation challenges continue. Director of Export Services for USMEF, Courtney Heller, said that they are collaborating with Canadian partners to remedy the issues and simplify the process as intended. The food safety systems in both countries are very similar. However, delays and other challenges have resulted in some U.S. exporters stopping shipments to Canada. With the Canadian market being such a significant one for beef and pork producers, USMEF and the Meat Institute will be working in tandem to address some of these slowdowns at the border. CDFA's Office of Environmental Farming and Innovation will be accepting grant applications until October 18th for a variety of different dairy and livestock sustainability incentive grant programs. The Dairy Digester Research and Development Program provides financial assistance for the installation of dairy digesters to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The new Dairy Plus program provides competitive grants to California dairy farms for the implementation of advanced manure management practices that reduce both methane emissions and nutrient surplus. The Alternative Manure Management Program provides financial assistance for the implementation of non-digester manure management practices, which result in reduced greenhouse gas emissions. More information about the individual programs is available at cdfa.ca.gov/OEFI. The Alliance for Food and Farming's 2024 Safe Fruits and Veggies Farm Tour will take place August 12th through the 14th on the Central Coast. This year's tour will begin with a visit to a strawberry farm to see harvest and pest control technologies. Next will be a visit to the Cal Poly Strawberry Center to learn more about the center's work to increase the sustainability of California's strawberry industry through research and education. Day 2 will feature Limonera Company's citrus groves and their packing facility, and the final day will include a stop at Terry Farms to tour a bell pepper field and view harvest. These tours aim to achieve a broad outreach goal of highlighting the work that goes into farming by providing nutrition communicators and social influencers a first-hand look at the care and commitment by farmers and farming companies to grow, harvest, and deliver safe and nutritious food to consumers. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
The USDA works to right some wrongs. That's coming up on this line of ours. Checks are going out for the USDA's Discrimination Financial Assistance Program. White House Director of Public Engagement Steve Benjamin says it moves forward the goal of equity in agriculture.
We're pleased to announce that financial assistance awards totaling $2 billion to reach more than 43,000 individuals have been made under the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program, which has been possible by Section 22007 of the Inflation Reduction Act. This announcement is a result of hours of hard work by many individuals at USDA and by third-party organizations. It's only one part of an enormous, commendable effort at USDA to make its programs more accessible and equitable for all who want to participate in agriculture. President Biden is committed to advancing equity in agriculture and ensuring that every farmer and rancher across the country has the tools and resources needed.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. Let's talk about LEP. What are the key benefits of your products for farmers in the Western Zone?
So Live Earth Products, we mine and manufacture a ingredient called humate. Now, humate is rich in organic acids called humic acid and fulvic acid. Now, those are common components in your soil organic matter. And here in the Western United States, unlike those places around the Mississippi going east, actually have very low organic matter. Now, your organic matter is key think of it as the pantry in the soil. So it's key to water retention, nutrient retention, nutrient cycling, microbial activity, those kind of things. So anything that's going to impact the increase in soil organic matter will also impact things like water holding capacity and nutrient holding capacity, which is a big deal here in the West when water is not as abundant as it is in the east side of the United States.
Now, what about nitrate? I know nitrate can be a problem in some soils. So how do LEP products help reduce the nitrate problem on saturated soils?
So Live Earth Products is not unique in how we affect nitrogen, but any organic matter will help retain nitrogen. So typically the mechanisms that we use are blending the nitrogen with the humate. So what happens is the nitrogen will attach to the humic acid, and you will see less of the processes that degrade or volatilize nitrogen. So nitrogen will either convert to a gas or it'll be converted by microbes into a nitrate and leach to the soil. So the longer you have that product is not being volatilized or converted, the longer opportunity for that nutrient to be used by the plant. We have university testing that has shown that when you blend these organic acids with the nutrient, you give that plant a longer opportunity to use that nutrient before it's lost, volatilized, or converted.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. How much food price inflation will shoppers face during the rest of this year and all of 2025? Gary Crawford has this report.
Analysts at the U.S. Department of Agriculture are projecting that food at the grocery store this year will likely end up costing us more than last year, but on average, only about 1% more.
And that's compared to a 5% increase in prices that we saw for groceries in 2023.
And 11.5% in 2022. USDA economist Megan Schweitzer told us that even though we are only a bit more than halfway through this year,
I don't expect too much change in the forecast through the remainder of the year. We've sort of narrowed in on this right around 1% predicted change in prices. It's been the same for the past 2 months.
And while overall grocery prices are expected to rise, some food categories are going to cost less than last year. Fresh fruit, almost 1% less.
And then a few other categories where we're predicting price declines in 2024 are fish and seafood by 0.8%, eggs by 0.3%,
milk and dairy products by almost 0.5%. So as we heard earlier, USDA is expecting food price inflation for this year to be only 1%. And for 2025,
just slightly lower than what we're expecting in 2024.
Megan says the long-range historical data and current trends both point to another year of very slow, almost no food price inflation. And again, to put it in context.
So for food at home or grocery prices, last year we saw prices increase by 5% in 2023. This year in 2024, we're forecasting those grocery prices to increase by 1%. And then next year, looking into 2025, we're forecasting grocery prices to increase by 0.7%.
Just 0.7%. That is, of course, barring any unforeseen shocks to the food system, such as we saw during COVID, which begs the question, Megan, why are you and your other economists even trying to forecast food prices a year and a half out?
Yeah, so one of the primary reasons that we do these forecasts up to 18 months in the future is our forecasts are used a lot in budget planning by USDA, by industry, other government organizations who are food purchasers, such as for schools or institutions. They're doing budget planning of what food might cost them in the upcoming year. And so our future forecasts here really help people to do some budget planning for the upcoming years.
And those long-range projections, are often very accurate. Last July, analysts were projecting grocery store food prices this year could be about 1% higher than 2023. And that's exactly where we're at now. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Several specific topic reports are issued by USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service as part of its continued release of the 2022 Census of Agriculture data. Rod Bain reports.
One of the premier pieces of agriculture information and literature released only every 5 years. USDA's Census of Agriculture.
The 2022 Census of Agriculture, there is a tremendous amount of data. There's over 6 million data points that get released at that initial release time. But there's a lot of information that can be summarized in many different ways.
And Brian Combs of the National Agricultural Statistics Service says those summaries are presented not just as data sets, but in several cases as standalone reports based on census survey information.
We have the market value of ag products rankings, we have state and county profiles, congressional district profiles and rankings, and the race, ethnicity, and gender profiles.
The month of July saw NASS releases of census-oriented reports focused on data collected on the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico.
Their average farm size was at 65 cuerdas in 2022, and that was up from 59.3 cuerdas in 2018.
As well as the publishing of Census of Ag statistics associated with watersheds.
The watershed publication just provides yet another way for the Ag Census data users to examine and compare Ag Census data.
Among the additional reports on surveys connected to the Census of Agriculture, scheduled for release throughout the remainder of the year,
we're going to be having the American Indian Reservations report that will be released on August the 29th. We have Ag Census web maps that are scheduled to be available September the 10th. The specialty crops publication will be available on October the 17th. And we will have a zip code tabulation available on November the 7th. We do have a couple of our special studies that will also be released later this year. So the 2023 Irrigation and Water Management Survey will be available available on October the 31st. And then the 2023 Census of Aquaculture will be available on December the 16th.
2022 Census of Agriculture data and reports are available online at www.nas.usda.gov/agcensus, all one word. I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This is the AgNet News Hour. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here is today's featured interview with Cindy Zimmerman.
I'm speaking with Ted McKinney, who is the CEO of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, and he was the keynote speaker here at Tech Hub Live. A great address, Ted. It was wonderful. You gave a lot of energy here in the room. One of your main messages was about climate change and how we can address climate change and do climate-smart agriculture and still increase productivity. Why are you so optimistic about that?
Well, I have been witness on our own farm and in my industry days to the advancement of innovation across the board. As I say it lovingly, the crops and the critters and everything in between. So I've seen it. And based on what I have been hearing and then what I saw at this conference in the types of companies here and what they're doing, it's mind-blowing. So I'm juiced because I see it has not stopped. In fact, I'd say innovation is accelerating. What's lost, though, are the messages where people understandably are very concerned about climate change and all the things that go with that, soil health, air, all those things. Fine. We must address that. No disagreement here, and I would guess most of ag would not disagree. They would agree. What I'm concerned about is I'm not hearing anybody say it's both. And sometimes wealthy societies have that happen to them. We can all afford our food, but what about the countries of Africa, Central South America, Asia Pacific, where they rely on our feed grains? Quality, yes. Lower cost, yes, because we're so efficient. What are we going to do? Say goodbye? Say so long? Say, sorry, climate change just took over? No, we can't do that, particularly when we don't have to. That's the point. I've seen developments over decades on our own farm, and I see the excitement of the people at this conference, and they all are bringing something new. We can do it both and not miss a beat.
Well, talking about climate-smart agriculture practices, and you also were asked about the 45Z tax credit, which was part of this was all part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Getting into sustainable aviation fuel and the climate-smart agriculture practices, which we're going to need in order to qualify those biofuels for sustainable aviation fuel. Also, the idea of carbon capture pipelines. There seems to be a lot of elements in here that are going to, that these biofuels producers are depending on to make happen. Yes. So your comments on that?
Yes. Well, Cindy, I'll hearken back to when ethanol, corn-based or sugarcane-based ethanol, came alive. It was a Herculean effort. Lobbying, call it influencing, call it education, whatever you want to call it. All of ag came out very active in that, and I think we've got to do the same. Though it seems obvious to you and me, the benefits, whether it's addressing food waste by putting it into sustainable aviation fuel or renewable biodiesel or whatever the name might carry, my gosh, agriculture and the processors downstream are doing a great job. But let's just be honest. The oil and gas lobby is very alive, very well, and very strong. And everybody is getting in the ear of Secretary Yellen at Treasury, the president's ear and his advisors, and it's tough to call the balls and the strikes when you're in that situation. But I think logic, need, care for the environment, care for farmers who need that help now. I'm glad we're on this side, not the other. I'll put it that way.
You mentioned Bill Northey. I was so happy to hear you mention him and pay a little tribute to him because he was here at this event. One of the greatest people I know in the administration with you. Just a few words about that man.
Well, this is hard. Bill and I were colleagues. He was Secretary of Ag when I was both a company employee, and then I became Director of Ag, and his counterpart of sorts in Indiana. At USDA, our offices were right across the hall from each other. His suite of offices doing NRCS and Farm Service, and mine, the other side, doing trade, were right across. And our wives, to this day, are still very, very, very good friends. What I said about Bill to a lot of friends was the following. I never met a more empathetic listener, a caring listener than Bill Northey. Oh, my gosh. You couldn't go complain to the guy because he was so into what you were saying and what he wanted to hear what you had to say. And it was real. It wasn't fake. So we lost a titan when we lost Bill. And I'm guessing God needed some soil conservation or something going on up somewhere else because he's got a good one. But, yeah, he was a dear friend to me and certainly for most of his years to all the people of Iowa and then to the world when he was when we were together at USDA. But I loved the man, and I hated to see him go. It was a blow to so many. But we're not going to let him. We're not going to let his legacy go, and that's what I keep telling people.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. We continue now with Cindy Zimmerman.
Well, trade. That was your thing at USDA. It seems the last few years we have not done a whole lot on trade in this administration. What are your views on that? Do you think we've let ag trade go in the last few years?
Well, without pointing fingers, we have. I thought it was said very well when the trade rep herself was at a hearing and said, well, here's the dilemma. Farmers and ag loves trade, and lots of manufacturing don't like trade. I think it was more unions don't like trade, but and that's a true statement. So here she is caught in the middle. You know, I wish she had an ag background so we could see some good, honest bias, but I'm kidding on that. I would have liked to seen us at least make the effort to trade, do more trade in ag, and if we're going to fight battles on chips and cars and widgets and anything else that's non-ag, fine. But let ag do its thing. We're now a net food importer. I never thought I'd see the day. Now, I can rationalize that. Some of that's because we buy high-priced wines and spirits out of Europe, and that skews it. Come on, give me a break. For the first time, we are net importers. And at a time when we've got to diversify our portfolio, I mean, there are risks with countries like China, for example. I'd love to see us trade a lot more with China. And I think we could. But when that is in question, you diversify your portfolio. And when you do that, you've got to have a good level playing field. And when so many countries are either cheating the WTO or are not signed on to the WTO, then when their tariffs are not one, but oftentimes 4, 5, 6 times higher than they're doing a deal with Australia or good friendly competitor of ours, we're screwed, man. So I hope that there is a renewed effort to look at that. I think ag could do a better job at describing how ag does benefit workers, whether it's unionized or not. I mean, think of the people in the rail, in the shipping, in the stevedore or port business, or anything else who benefit. A lot of those are unionized, and they're benefiting from ag. So maybe we've got to find that better story to tell. I don't mean to be Pollyannish with that. I suspect it's way more than that. But, gosh, that could be a starting point. But, no, we've got to get serious about ag trade.
Well, you mentioned briefly USMCA, which was really one of the big accomplishments of the Trump administration. How do you think that's gone since then?
Well, overall, very well. I mean, it is the model that we, the U.S., and I would say if they're wise, other countries would use. It's the only free trade agreement that's got biotech provisions in it, for goodness sake. It's the trading between what I still call, and this is I've stolen this from Secretary Sonny Perdue, we're in the best neighborhood on the earth. So we better figure out how to get along given how much we each benefit. But when our friends in Canada play sleight of hand, and they did with dairy, they might accuse us of something, and that's fair game. We've got to deal with those. I'm not trying to say we're holier than thou. When our friends in Mexico bring up this unconscionable corn decree, now I get the philosophy behind it, but you can't continue to celebrate teosinte and plant teosinte, the first ever of the maize variety. There's no yield there. It's more like a grass. So let's save them. Let's keep that germplasm alive. That's what the CIMMYT facility, the UN-based CIMMYT facility that Norman Borlaug work at, that's what they do. And let's celebrate that. And let's have festivals celebrating teosinte. Man, I am all in. I'm ready to put some money into that. But don't just say, oh, because our culture celebrates that, we can't bring on new technologies. My God, man, you'll starve. So those are what's testing the system, and there is an appeals system in the USMCA, and let's just hope they work. Let's hope they work. They must work.
Well, it seems like it's having less problems than NAFTA did, so.
Yes. And I think when you sit them down, each country realizes, my gosh, we are so intertwined. We are so intertwined that we can't screw up a good thing. But politics will play, and politics are real, and votes are real. And it's more so when you've got very, very divided consumers and a very, very divided Congress. So strap yourself in is what I can say, but we better keep focusing on the science and the realities of that science.
One more thing. There was a hearing last week on the Hill about the state of the farm economy, and it was very, very kind of depressing. What do you see when you talk to your state ag directors? What are they telling you? What do you think the state of the ag economy is right now?
Yeah. Well, it pains me. I don't like to hear that. I always want to be hearing that farmers are doing well and making profit. But reality, when we look ourselves in the mirror, is that cycles have been with us for eons. We're going through a down cycle. Not using that as an excuse, not using that as a reason not to do anything. I'm just saying cycles occur. So when you anticipate a cycle or you're in a cycle, for crying out loud, that's when you're more timely with a farm bill, disaster assistance, trade, for crying out loud. That's when you've got to be on your A game in all the other areas to soften that blow, because cycles are going to happen. Can't stop that. But we're at a time when we're not on our A game. Maybe in some areas, but not in all of them. And you've got to be on your A game at all times. I mean, the Olympics is you can be the best of the best in competing with athletes. Let's take swimming in the U.S. When you go up against other countries, it's a new day. And you got to get off that platform right. Your breathing's got to be right. Your diet's got to be right. Well, same goes for farming and ranching and all the processing downstream, and we're not on our A game yet. We can get there, though, and that's what this conference is so valuable in doing, is it's giving us the tools to make those decisions, minimize risk, and make a good decision. But even then, we've got to get more certainty into agriculture.
But overall, you're optimistic.
I am still an optimist, and I always will be.
Very good. Great to see you here. I know we could talk forever, but it was such a pleasure to see you. And here at Tech Hub Live in Des Moines, I'm Cindy Goodman.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halvorson.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halvorson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.